All right, this is about to start in a few minutes. I mentioned this, I believe, yesterday or even Sunday, that this is going to happen today. So we're going to be watching out for the beginning, the start of this shortly. I think it's 4:30. At least let's see if they stay on schedule. So I'm going to get ready to mute, get myself off camera, and I'm going to be watching this intently as I need to take notes like I did for the last one. Let me see if I have a working pen. All right, I've got that ready to go. Let me just get these pop-outs ready. And the volume's all the way up. So I have a few minutes to spare. Let's get these pop-outs. So now this is in the Senate. This is not in the House. Now this is in the Senate. Okay. This is not in the House. Hearing something. That could be me. Now this is in the Senate. Yep. Okay. This is not in the One of these something. Is bleeding through. That could be me. I don't know which one it is. It is Rumble. Okay, good. We solved that right off the bat. Doing all the pop-outs. It's 4:29. All right, I'm going to take myself off camera. This on full screen. I don't know why it's not working. There we go. And it should be starting any minute. Just getting my papers together. Alexa, stop. That was my alarm for this. So, it is 4:30 now. So hopefully they'll start soon. Just to make sure we are live. It is live. Now this is with the new head of Arrow. I put that in the description of the stream. It's Jon T. Kosloski. Dr. Jon T. Kosloski will be the witness. Single witness. It's the new head of Arrow, the director, let's say. The All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office, if you're curious what Arrow, A-A-R-O, stands for. It's on the screen right there. The All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And hopefully this will get started soon. Now, I did just receive a book in the mail that I was told it was highly recommended about a lot of what went on with these nuclear facilities. I'm going to go grab it because maybe we have time to kill. Before this hearing actually starts. Hopefully it will start. And the title was changed. And Alexa, turn on the living room light.
Okay.
It was formerly titled Clear Intent. The foreword is by J. Allen Hynek. The book is by Lawrence Fawcett and Barry J. Greenwood. It's this book right here. And it's called now it's called the UFO Cover: What the Government Won't Say. And it goes into the FOIA. Intrusions at Loring. Wordsmith and others. So it talks about the different incidents. The CIA involvement, FBI involvement. Sample UFO documents from government files. NORAD UFO sightings report forms. It's and it's got redactions in it. It's actually got a lot in here. And I don't know if I'm going to have time, but I don't know where my glasses are. My cheap ones. Maybe we could read the foreword quickly. Let me just skim through it myself.
This hearing will come to order. I'd like to first thank our witness, Dr. Jon Kosloski, for testifying. He is our newly appointed director of the All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, an office Congress established in the fiscal year 2022. He is our newly appointed director of the All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office, very serious problem of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP. Dr. Kosloski comes to ARROW from the Research Directorate of the National Security Agency, where he worked in areas of optics research and crypto mathematics. He previously served at the DoD Special Communications Enterprise Office. We look forward to regular engagements between you and the committee. When unidentified anomalous phenomenon enter our airspace, we need to know about it. We need to identify it, but in order to do that, we need to reduce the stigma and credibility challenges associated with these events. Our service members, scientists, foreign partners, and the general public need to know that their reporting, research, and analysis will be taken seriously and acted on in good faith. In the spirit of transparency, ARROW recently released a consolidated annual report just a few months after releasing the first volume of a historical record report in March of this year. These public documents help highlight the challenges still facing this office, including the lack of timely and actionable sensor data, the need to revisit cases placed in the active archive, and the importance of improving reporting sources, both in the interagency and internationally. In this hearing, I want to probe a series of specific issues. First, as incidents at Langley and elsewhere have demonstrated, unmanned aerial systems, or UAS, continue to pose significant threats to our national security. In addition to safety of flight issues these UAS create for our own pilots and aircrew, the UAS present clear and undeniable counterintelligence concerns around some of the most sensitive airspace. While standard UAS are not part of AARO's mission, your work on sensors at military installations across the country will be critical to making sure that we have the domain awareness necessary to accurately identify and track these objects. I expect your office to also pay close attention to any anomalous characteristics that these systems could present in the future. Second, I look forward to your presentation of 3 case studies demonstrating cases that AARO has resolved, including the Go Fast, which is one of the most prominent UAP cases. However, I believe it is important to acknowledge ongoing public interest in the Nimitz incident, the gimbal video, and other prominent UAP cases, and for AARO to share what it can about those cases as well. It's also important that AARO speak to unresolved cases and what types of anomalous activity have merited further analysis. And while I know AARO has gone through a period of transition over the past year, it is important to share these disclosures, both resolved and unresolved cases, with the public, even when a Senate hearing is not scheduled. Lastly, while some have been hesitant to come forward to AARO in the past, I hope that potential individuals with firsthand knowledge of unreported programs view your arrival in this position as an opportunity for a new start. AARO was created by Congress to do this work. Congress waived non-disclosure agreements for those who disclose information to AARO and gave AARO the authority to go and turn over every rock. I hope those with information to share use this opportunity so that we, as your senators who represent you, can do our jobs. I look forward to hearing more on these issues from Dr. Kosloski and for members to start a dialogue on this important topic. With that, I would like to turn to Senator Ernst for her opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Kosloski. Our hearing today is about identifying UAPs and understanding their potential implications, which could range from technological advancements to potential threats to our national security. Are these phenomena tied to foreign adversaries such as China or Russia, leveraging advanced technologies beyond our current capabilities? Or do they represent unknown scientific phenomena that challenge our current understanding? We must answer these critical questions to ensure that our national security is not compromised. It is vital that all agencies work in tandem to aggregate data, identify patterns, and develop robust analytical frameworks. Our ability to detect, track, and respond to UAPs requires the latest technology and full cooperation from all government branches. Thanks very much, Dr. Kosloski, for your attention to this matter, and I look forward to the valuable insights that you and AARO can provide to our committee, and I yield back. Thank you.
Dr. Kosloski, please make your opening statement.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gillibrand, Ranking Member Ernst, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. It is a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Department of Defense as the new Director of the All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a status update on AARO's work and respond to your questions about unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP. On behalf of the department and the entire AARO team, I want to say how grateful we are to Congress for its continued support. Unidentified objects in any domain pose potential threats to U.S. safety and security. Reports of UAP activity, particularly near national security sites, must be treated seriously and investigated with scientific rigor by the U.S. government. By way of introduction, I'm Jon Kosloski. I'm a researcher at my core with an academic background in mathematics, physics, and engineering. I've spent most of my career at the National Security Agency, leading advanced research in the areas of optics, computing, and cryptomathematics. By nature, I am drawn to tough scientific problems, which is what brought me to AARO and the UAP mission. Since I arrived at AARO in August, I've been impressed by the breadth and depth of my team's experience and the framework they've established to rigorously analyze UAP reports. AARO has taken meaningful steps to improve data collection and retention, bolster sensor development, effectively triage UAP reports, and reduce the stigma of reporting UAP events. Last year, AARO worked with the DoD's Joint Staff to issue guidance to defense personnel worldwide on how to report UAP observations and is working with the military services regarding implementation. Aero has also launched a public website that features UAP imagery, case resolutions, material analysis, archival records, and more. These are only a few examples of Aero's recent progress, and we're just getting started. To date, Aero has over 1,600 UAP reports in its holdings from across the U.S. government. I'll share a slide in just a few minutes with updated UAP analytic trends. You'll see that many reports resolve the commonplace objects like birds, balloons, and unmanned systems, while others lack sufficient data for comprehensive analysis. Although only a small percentage of reports received by Aero are potentially anomalous, these are the cases that require significant time, resources, and a focused scientific inquiry by Aero and its network of partners. It is important to underscore that, to date, Aero has not discovered any verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology. To accomplish Aero's national security mission, I have set 3 priorities for the office: building strong partnerships, promoting transparency, and scaling up the work of the office. Aero cannot do its work alone. Building partnerships across government, academia, industry, and with the public is essential to the success of the office. Strong cooperation with the military services is particularly important. We rely on their support to implement our reporting guidance and to amplify the message that there should be zero stigma associated with UAP reporting. We also rely on partnerships with the national labs, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, NASA, all of which play a role in the whole of government effort to address UAP. Recognizing the talent and expertise that reside outside of the government, Aero will continue to explore new ways to partner with the academic and scientific communities to investigate its most complex UAP cases. A related priority for Aero is transparency. Our ability to collaborate with key partners, including the scientific community and the public, relies on information sharing, to include downgrading and declassifying UAP-related information. In some cases, it may be unclear to the public why the DoD classified a piece of information in the first place. Why are photos of seemingly benign objects such as balloons classified? It's often the case that an object or phenomenon isn't itself a security concern, but the location, source, or method used to capture it is still sensitive. Many cases are difficult to quickly release to the public, but are reported to the appropriate committees in Congress that are authorized by law or House and Senate leadership to receive the information. It is important to note that Aero does not unilaterally declassify information. Instead, we work with the originator of a classified record to ensure that declassifying that record does not inadvertently harm national security. This can take time. Nonetheless, the department is committed to declassifying and publicly sharing more information on UAP while protecting sensitive sources and methods. I'll be sharing some newly declassified imagery in just a few minutes. Aero is also working closely with the National Archives and Records Administration to make UAP-related documents publicly available in a digitized collection. Meanwhile, Aero continues to review the U.S. historical record relating to UAP. We welcome any former or current government, civilian, contractor, or military service member with relevant information to reach out to us at www.aero.mil. My final priority is scaling up Aero's work to match its mission. Aero needs to bolster the quantity, quality, and diversity of data that it acquires and examines. This means tapping into existing data sources within the interagency while deploying Aero's own organic sensor capabilities. To the extent that UAP results from the domain awareness gaps, more and better data will help us fill those gaps and help us understand what is being encountered. In closing, Aero is committed to the highest standards of scientific integrity. We will not foreclose on any explanation for UAP prematurely. We will continue to follow the science and data wherever they lead. We will continue to have an open and frank dialogue with Congress in settings like these and in classified briefings. We will continue to keep you fully and currently informed of all UAP information, active or historical. And finally, we will share as much information as possible at the unclassified level to inform the public of Aero's activities and its findings. For now, I'd like to turn to a brief presentation of UAP trends and cases, and then I'd be happy to take questions. Okay, this chart represents the UAP reporting since 1996. And as has previously been discussed by Arrow, that sensor placement seems to have caused a bias in our data, both geographic and at altitude. And we're working to resolve that bias in 2025 or reduce that bias through broader engagements with the DoD as well as the IC and the rest of the government, also by incorporating broader sensors into our data and through a public reporting mechanism that we hope to have live in mid-2025. On the left side, it shows the altitudes, and we'll see, it's a bit cut off, we'll see that most of the reporting occurs between 15,000 and 25,000 feet. That happens to be where most of our sensors are. And the reporting above and below that is also often coming from those same platforms. In the center, we'll see that the resolved cases have the vast majority being balloons and UAS. We're seeing a great increase in satellites recently, particularly with the launch of mega satellite constellations such as Starlink, where the satellites are catching what is called satellite flares or glint off the sun just after sunset or just before sunrise. And on the rightmost, we'll see the morphology or the shapes that have been reported. The majority have been lights or orbs. We think that there's going to be an increase in the lights with the mega constellations, but our most interesting cases, some of which I'll discuss later, are actually the shapes such as the triangles or the cylinders. And at the bottom, we'll see the geographic bias that I mentioned before, where most of the reports historically had been near the government sites. This bias has been reduced recently by reporting from the FAA. We now get weekly reports from them. And great thank you to our aviators for making those reports. It helps our analysis quite a bit. Okay, a case that we thought would be a transmedium case as it was reported is well known on the outside, known as the Puerto Rico case. It was data collected in 2013 when a Customs and Border Patrol aircraft observed an object flying near an airport in Puerto Rico. The green line in this diagram is the track that the airplane was taking, and those many crossed lines are the directions that the camera was facing at the time that the airplane was flying around the airport, and we'll watch the video in just a moment. The orange arrow in the center is where we assess that the UAP was actually flying, and transmedium means that it goes from one domain into another. In this case, it looks like it goes from the air into the water and then back into the air. We assess that it was actually flying over the airport the entire time. And this video was taken with infrared, and what appears to be the transmedium part where it goes into the water is actually where the temperature of the water is equal to the temperature of the object, and the camera can no longer distinguish between the two. It's not that the object actually goes into the water. And so we assess that the object, likely a pair of balloons or sky lanterns, was floating at about 7 knots over the airport and descending to about 200 meters. And this video will be released, and our report will be released later this year. The Go Fast was captured the public attention and congressional attention when it was made public in 2017. Looks like an object flying very fast over the water, very close to the water. Through a very careful geospatial intelligence analysis using trigonometry, we assess with high confidence that the object is not actually close to the water, but is rather closer to 13,000 feet. Diagram here shows as the platform is flying and capturing the object, if it is closer to the platform at a higher altitude, a trick of the eye called parallax makes it look like the object is moving much faster. And so we've written a detailed paper on parallax, released that on our website so that the public can literally check our math on this analysis. An interesting case, which I don't believe the public is familiar with, is captured in 2018 from a UAV flying in the Mediterranean, watching Mount Etna as it was erupting. And it appears that that object is flying through the plume of superheated gas and ash. This was a rather difficult case to resolve. We had to pull in support from a number of IC and S&T partners and even reach out to a volcanologist. And through very detailed 3D modeling and pixel-by-pixel analysis of the object as it's traversing across the clouds. They assessed that the object was actually 170 meters away from the plume and not flying through it. And to be clear, Aero does not believe every object is a bird, a balloon, or a UAV. We do have some very anomalous objects. It's just the nature of resolution. We can only resolve things that we understand. So we're now working on additional products where we can inform the public, Congress, and others of the objects as we're studying them, rather than once we've resolved them. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kosloski. I appreciate your testimony. It's been widely reported that individuals claiming firsthand knowledge of unreported UAP programs have been reluctant to engage with Aero. What message do you have for those individuals, and how will you work to gain their trust?
I would let them know that Congress has gone out of its way to create the organization Aero specifically to conduct these sorts of investigations, and has uniquely empowered them to have access to all UAP-related information, whether that's historic or current. Mm-hmm. And we take that responsibility and those authorities very seriously. And so we have been reaching out to a broader community, encouraging folks who had talked to Aero personnel in the past and maybe felt uncomfortable to come back to us. We've met with several of their interlocutors and a couple of firsthand witnesses, and we are making great progress, and those firsthand witnesses that we have talked to do feel comfortable coming back to us. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that more folks that do have information would go to www.aero.mil, fill out the form, send it to us so we can bring them in for interviews and add their information to our investigations.
Thank you. I recently just read your report from March, your historic report, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in this topic to read the report, because when I was asked by a reporter about it, they said, well, it doesn't show any evidence of secret programs that have aliens. That's not how I read the report. What I read the report is the U.S. government took sightings extremely seriously over the last 75 years, put some of the greatest minds ever to analyze these cases because they assess them as some deeply unknown phenomena that may or may not cause threats, that may or may not be related to adversaries, but are certainly something that the U.S. government needed to know about. And what I read from this report is that we resolved numbers of cases, but in almost every instance, whether it was in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughts, half the cases were unresolved. So I don't think this is an example of the government not taking these cases seriously. I think this is an example of our government spending 75 years taking these cases very seriously. And interestingly, for the group that put together this report, they didn't have access to any firsthand reporting. And so from my perspective, for whistleblowers and people who want to come in, please come in, because the purpose of Aero is so that the senators can do our job to provide oversight, accountability, and transparency. We find it very concerning that our pilots, that our Navy officers, that people who have sightings of UAPs are denigrated, are somehow dismissed or disregarded. They need to be protected. This is a huge issue for national security because, number one, we don't have domain awareness, which is very problematic. Number two, we don't have domain superiority if we don't understand how different UAPs are flying, what technology they're using, what their mission is, what their purpose is. And at the base level, we have so many UAPs around our bases, around our military sites, around our nuclear sites, that it's deeply disturbing that adversaries at a minimum could be using these opportunities to spy, to glean intelligence that will harm our long-term national security. So I'm grateful that you're taking the whistleblowers very seriously. I'm grateful that Aero is trying its best to integrate the private sector, the public, into their work. Interestingly, in this hearing, we heard that the FAA is now working hand in glove, which is very helpful. We want this public-facing accessibility to be put in place by 2025 so that people can upload their videos, their data, their reports. I've met with people who have followed this issue for decades, and they have thousands of examples, thousands of pieces of data that ultimately I want uploaded into Aero so you can cross-reference historic information with current information, because this group at Aero are the best scientists that we can find anywhere. and they will do the work that's needed to be done. So I just want to thank you for that. And then with my last 42 seconds, can you tell us about any of the cases that merit further analysis by your IC and science and technology partners? What is it that makes these cases anomalous? And a large number of reports are placed in the active archive because Arrow does not have enough information. What might prompt you to reopen a case like that, and do you have any examples?
Sure, I'll start with the active archive case. So that is just the place where we put cases where we don't have enough scientific information to resolve them at that time, but we're always looking for opportunities to correlate them to new cases that come in, as the new cases come in, as well as enrich those cases with additional data. We do have one example that I'm aware of where we were able to correlate a number of observations of interesting lights in the sky, and eventually we concluded that it was multiple people observing Starlink flares, just as an example. 3 cases that merit analysis that we're working on right now. One we might be in the process of resolving, but nonetheless is still interesting. The first one was brought to us by a law enforcement officer out west, where he observed a large orange orb floating several hundred feet above the ground a couple miles away. He went to investigate what was going on with that orb. And as he was pulling up to the location where he thought would be below the orb, about 40 to 60 meters away from some object the area was well lit, he saw a blacker than black object. He said it was about the size of a Prius, 4 to 6 feet wide. And as he got 40 to 60 meters away from the object, it tilted up about 45 degrees, and then it shot up vertically. He says 10 to 100 times faster than any drone he's ever seen before. And it did that without making a sound, as far as he could tell from inside of his vehicle. And just as it left his field of view through his windshield, then it emitted very bright red and blue lights that illuminated the inside of his vehicle as brightly as if someone had set off fireworks just outside his vehicle, or street flares. So that's anomalous because of the size of the vehicle with the great acceleration, and when he came back to investigate that area, he found no disturbance of the ground beneath it. So that's one interesting one. Another one comes to us from Southeast US. There was a US facility where 2 cars of government contractors were leaving the facility around 9 o'clock in the morning. They looked up in the sky and saw a large metallic cylinder about the size of a commercial airplane, and it was stationary. They observed that there was a very bright white light behind or around the object. They saw it stationary for 15 to 20 seconds, and then it disappeared. Obviously, an object that large, stationary, unless it's a blimp, is unusual, but then disappearing, we can't explain how that would happen. And then the last case was interesting. We had a aircraft that was flying parallel to another aircraft, and it was capturing imagery of it, and a small-looking object appeared to fly between the 2 of them much faster than them. Through very careful analysis, we think that the object might have actually been further away than the object that it was videotaping, but it requires very careful analysis to come to those conclusions, and we don't have the metadata to support that yet.
Senator Ernst.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Kosloski, you mentioned that you do work with the intelligence community. You're working with the FAA. Has Arrow involved academia? Have you gone to universities? Do you have outside organizations that you are working with? And if so, can you walk us through some of that collaboration?
Sure. Right now, most of our collaborations that are veering towards academia are with university-affiliated research centers associated with universities or with FFRDCs. Our partnership with universities, I would say, is lacking right now. We have some one-off associations with university professors. However, that's our fault, and it's largely because of the need to declassify data. We need to give the professors something to work on before we can really engage them. So we're working significantly on a declassification effort. We've hired a number of declassification experts, and we're going to be trying to get cases like the ones that I just discussed here declassified so that we can engage with the universities on a regular basis and provide them the data. Talking to a scientist without data is going to be rather disappointing. So hopefully in 2025, we'll be increasing those efforts.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. I think there's a huge pool of talent out there that you should tap into. Given the public's growing concern and interest in UAPs, How do you balance the need for the transparency that our public is demanding with the potential risks of revealing classified defense information?
Yeah, that's always a concern that's on the front of our minds. We want to make sure that we're deconflicting both on potential U.S. programs and what the IC might be tracking for adversarial programs as we're aggregating that information and preparing to share it. However, oftentimes we can remove the discussion of the unidentified and anomalous activity from the sensitive information that our partners are concerned with. And that's usually going to be the platforms that the information was collected with if it is truly anomalous. And so we have our partners working alongside in the declassification of that data.
Very good. And then without having to explain the UAP, what do we need to begin really doing about them? What precautions can we take? What should we be doing about them?
I think that removing the stigma, reducing the stigma is the first step. We need to make sure that we're having honest and transparent conversations about them, because if we're hesitant to discuss them, then it opens the opportunity for an adversary, as you had mentioned earlier, Senator Gillibrand, to come in and conduct some activity. So we need to do that, and we need to have more persistent monitoring and understand that whether it is a UAP or a counter-UAS issue, that we need to have that complete domain awareness around our national security facilities.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just a couple of follow-up questions. We didn't discuss in this setting the most recent UAP or UAS encounter with bases like Langley. I know that the incursion by UASs that were publicly made available through the press that took over 2 weeks was fairly alarming to senators, because there was a question about what technology they were using. There was a question about why it was so hard to detect. Can you speak to how Aero will be integrated into the review of these kinds of cases, and how you can be helpful to both the intelligence community and the Department of Defense in analyzing or being able to more quickly analyze what's knowable and what's not knowable, so that, because once you do identify it as a drone, for example, it then goes to the right department at DOD or the intelligence community to assess, deal with, or take down as the incident might be. But to talk to us a little bit about what role you can play for both the DOD and the IC community in these kinds of incursions that are happening when we don't know what tech is being used, and we don't understand a flight pattern, or we don't understand how they arrive and depart in the way they do.
Yeah, we are generally going to be supporting them through an advisory capacity as an organization that naturally needs to conduct baseline experiments of the environment to see what normal looks like, whether it's balloons, birds, anomalous activity, or drones flying through an environment. We're going to gather a lot of data that will allow us to characterize an environment very well and then detect and follow those tracks, hopefully rather efficiently. There's also a lot of overlap in the type of sensors that are going to be used for the counter-UAS mission and the UAP mission, whether that's active detection like radars or passive like cameras. And so as Aero is trying to push the bounds on detectability for UAP, we're hopefully going to have best practices that we can also provide to the counter-UAS, and potentially we might have additional technologies that we can offer them to support.
I'd like to just address a little bit of reporting and feedback. As you know, Aero is required to develop a mechanism for the public to report UAP information. Now that that mechanism for current and former military, civilian, and contractor personnel has been established, can you speak to Aero's plans for a public reporting mechanism, and how did Aero arrive at this approach, and were other options considered? And second, for pilots and operators who have reported a UAP, what feedback, if any, has Aero provided to these individuals related to what Aero is doing with their report and how the report has been resolved? How does such feedback or lack thereof impact the frequency of UAP reporting?
Yeah, the public reporting mechanism that we've decided to go with is going to look similar to the reporting mechanism that we currently have for historical events, where we're going to ask folks to go to our website, download a PDF form, put in the narrative for their account and then email that to us with accompanying media. Usually it'll probably be imagery. We went with that option because we thought, one, we could do it rather quickly, we could do it efficiently, make it very cost-effective for the taxpayer, but also we think we can gather all the data that we're going to need to conduct our analysis, and then we're going to have that feed into an automated processing system that will cross-correlate that against all the other public reported cases as well as the U.S. government cases. We did consider a number of other reporting mechanisms as to include automated online forms as well as cell phone apps, and we ultimately decided that this would be the safest, cheapest, and easiest to maintain in the future while protecting the private information of the individuals who are reporting. Regarding the feedback from the resolved reports, right now we don't have a good feedback mechanism. It's fairly informal. We're working on building a case management system that Arrow will use at all classification levels, and hopefully in that we'll be able to provide feedback as the case is going through the resolution process. We have multiple phases. Then the folks who report that, whether it's a pilot at the classified level or someone potentially reporting through another mechanism, they'll get that automated feedback. And then it is not determined at this point yet how much information we'll be able to include in that feedback where it is in the process. It'll depend on the classification of the resolution of the case.
My final question is there anything that you need to tell the Senate that you need from us, whether it's funding, whether it's support, whether it's legislation? Is there any requests that Arrow has of us or anything else you need to brief us on for us to be able to do our jobs to protect our service members as well as integrate public interest and public data and information into the future analysis efforts of Arrow?
So first of all, I want to say thank you again. I think that the authorities that we have are remarkable, and I think that we are well-resourced as an office. The only ask that I would have is that you continue to champion us, particularly with witnesses, encourage them to come forward and report to us so that we can have a more fulsome investigation of the potential historic or ongoing legacy programs.
Thank you so much. Hearing adjourned.
That is the most BS hearing I've ever seen. That was laughable. I mean, that was a joke. That was like ridiculous. That's the worst thing I've ever seen concerning this. Like, the questions you ask, you already know. What was that for? Now, I wonder what they had before this behind closed doors. But it's laughable. This is laughable. Are you kidding me? And it's only Gillibrand and Ernst sitting there, and it was 45 minutes. Nobody was sitting behind the gentleman. It was like an empty room. Boy, oh boy. For something that is of national security interest, it doesn't look like there's much interest in the national security. What the heck was that? I didn't even take notes. There was nothing worthy to take notes of. So they discounted some cases that are out there. Yeah, of course they're going to do that. Of course they're going to do that, the ones that are talked about. Now, in the other hearing, they said that there wasn't just the one video of the Go Fast, that there was a few, but they haven't been released from different angles. Where are they? Why don't you show those? Show us what that was. He says it was 2 balloons. Did he say 2 balloons? 1 or 2 balloons? The other one by the Mount Etna, was that a balloon? Was that a drone taking close proximity images of the eruption? Now, he did bring up the incident between what happened between 2 planes, that an object sped quick, but they don't have enough metadata to reach a conclusion yet. So anything that they don't have an answer for, we don't have enough data. That's what they're going to say. That's going to be the thing they say all the time. We just don't have enough data. That's what you're going to hear all the time. And as far as classification, that's a joke. They addressed that in the other hearing. It's overclassified. You're not touching it. You're not going to see it. It's national security. You're not going to see it. The public's not going to see it. They're not going to declassify it. And then to say that we're working with universities and those professors are waiting to do scientific analysis on stuff when it's declassified, good luck. Good luck. It's like the same old BS. And you know it's about the money. And yeah, we'd love the whistleblowers to come in and talk to us. Yeah? After you brought Gallaudet in and you told Gallaudet after hours of meetings trying to discredit whistleblowers that came in? Oh, so you think whistleblowers want to come in, but that was under Kirkpatrick. Oh, so now you want whistleblowers to come in after you talk shit behind their back with other people. Really? Like you take them serious. Oh, we take them very serious. Why would you want to do that with these people? It doesn't look like they take anything serious. Robert Salas is pounding for years to go in front of Congress. And trust me, his name will be mentioned more often. Just go look up the case at Maelstrom. I mean, what the hell was that? Yeah, because you got to remember, when there's a national security risk at a military installation, nuclear site, blah, 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 blah. Lou Elizondo brought that up. I took notes about all that. Exactly. What is the university? The science applications of what? But they have to declassify it. That's the whole point. Declassifying. That's the whole point of all of this. Is declassifying still so that the public could see it. Oh, no, but the scientists, the professors need to see it. Even the guy that was at the other hearing, Gold, said, it would be nice if scientists had access to this data. So we heard the same thing. There was nothing new here at all. And it's DOD. It's a DOD-run thing. That's why I put vanilla as it can get. This was putrid. I was expecting a little bit more. This was, yeah. This was horrible. I have to say, this was just bad. In my opinion, this was just bad. But, well, you know what? There is something we need. You know, the backing of Congress getting these whistleblowers to us. They could fill out a form. Do you know how many people that are like involved in stuff like the stuff that's in this book? That's another thing. How many people want to come forward, risk their careers, risk their livelihoods to go meet with them? Because they don't think it's serious. They think it's a joke. And like I said, Gallaudet said it. He thought the meeting was going to be 90 minutes with Arrow. Now, I don't know if this was done with him or with Kirkpatrick, but he said, I was thinking it was going to be 90 minutes. I was there for hours. They tried to convince me about these UAP incidents that I was wrong about my conclusions, and they also tried to discredit whistleblowers. Oh, how lovely is that? So what the hell would you go in there for? It's terrible. This is terrible. We have better luck in the House. You got to remember, a lot of people in the high-ranking positions don't want this going anywhere. They don't. Because they want to protect the aerospace companies and contractors and everything else that's associated with it. They don't want this taken too much further. And like I was telling Stephen Bassett, yeah, you can have a few senators, but you need that majority. Unless you get that majority consensus to move forward in the Senate and the House, it's not moving anywhere because it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to fall flat. It's going to be dead on arrival. Now, the interesting part is when Trump takes office officially with full House control and Senate, is there going to be a different push here? Because it tends to seem that when Trump says something, they listen. Right? That's the pattern I've noticed for the last 9 years. When he says something, they follow. So what if he says, I want this out? Do they follow the leader? We'll see. I think it can happen. A lot of people say, like I was telling my neighbor, she works for an alphabet agency. And she says, Bill, I know what you believe. I know what, I told her that Trump being the disclosure president. Oh, Bill, she was almost like laughing in my face. Oh, Bill, I know what you want. I know what you're involved with. But it's most likely it's just top secret military projects. Who the hell keeps trying to call me? I don't know that number. I don't pick up numbers I don't know. I never pick up numbers I don't know. Never. So that doesn't happen. If you don't identify yourself, I don't pick up. It's that simple. Didn't I send that text? Hold on. I gotta see who the heck is trying to call me. Oh shit, it was Chris. The first time. I'll call him after I'm done, because I gotta do a pre-record in an hour anyway. I need to check something first. But that was terrible. I was expecting more than that. Maybe I'm just too hopeful. I can't talk too much because there's a lot of stuff out there that's going on behind the scenes, and I'm sworn not to talk about it. And there was supposed to be a possible breaking story coming in the next few days about something, but I can't talk about what that is. But it is definitely UAP related. That's one. Secondly, allegedly, the unknown whistleblower connected to Immaculate Constellation is an Australian government employee. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to go into details because it's all speculation. But that's the word that's going on out there. I don't get into this speculation unless something is confirmed. I'm just saying there's stuff being said that there's a person that has come forward claiming to be the whistleblower connected to this Immaculate Constellation thing. I'm not getting into details because until we know more, I'm not dropping names. I'm not going to get into specifics, but basically that's what's going on. But the person is Australian, supposedly, allegedly. That's as much as I can say. But would he go to sit in front of Arrow? If this guy is the person, is he going to go and become a witness for Arrow? A person from another country representing another country's government? That'd be interesting. But, like I said, there are people out there, firsthand, still alive, but some are like up there seriously in age. There are still relevant firsthand witnesses. And this is what I brought up with Toby, with Steve. Could we see a future hearing when Trump takes office? It's not going to happen before, like some people speculate. No, they're going on recess soon for the holidays. December is like off because of the holiday. They leave for recess. And they're not going to do anything until after the new House is, the House and the Senate and the President take office. They're not going to do anything. It's as lame duck as it gets. They're going to wait until, and it may take a couple of months after things settle before they have another hearing. So probably in the spring, we'd see maybe another hearing. But this one could be different because it could have multiple first-hand witnesses. That's different. But how do they corroborate their story? Are they meeting with Congress behind closed doors, and are they entering a skiff? And are they looking at their cases to try to see what can be declassified in relation to those cases? What does the government have in their possession regarding these specific cases? I would like to see what happens there. So, again, and as I was referring to this book, and it's an old book. One of the authors has passed away. I don't know about Greenwood, but I know Fawcett passed away. This is an interesting read. And it used to be called Clear Intent. And it's now called the UFO Cover-Up, What the Government Won't Say. And like I said, there's all kinds of stuff in here, but it goes over some of these cases that happen at bases. I just want to read the forward. Alexa, turn on the ring light.
Okay.
And I'm going to skim. Okay, I'm just going to read this. In the 3,000 pages of previously classified documents on UFOs released during the past 4 years by the Department of State. Now remember, this is old. The Army, Navy, and Air Force, the FBI, CIA, NSA, and the DIA. We find the expert testimony of scientists, military and intelligence personnel, law enforcement officers, and other responsible people on the subject of UFO researchers, and it mentions Bruce Maccabee, a bunch of people. It says here, a lot of it, like John Greenwald, goes through FOIA, but doesn't mention John Greenwald's name. I'm just saying, it references FOIA. Oh, no. Jeez, I'm trying to read to you, and Mom comes into the room.
My God, this is my house.
I know, but I'm in the middle of reading something important.
What I'm doing.
What?
My phone is dead. I have to.
Okay, go charge
Okay, please.
it. So again, this is an old book. They also attest to intense governmental interest in UFOs when the phenomenon pose a threat to national security of the United States. So this is a new narrative. We find it most surprising, check this out. We find it most surprising that although UFOs have affected national security many times in the past, the government continues to perceive these reports on a case-by-case basis, referring to them as isolated incidents. Let's go back for a moment and take a brief look at a few past examples of national security being threatened by unconventional aerial objects. From the start, UFOs were a top secret matter of this, there is no doubt. The following excerpt is from a formerly classified FBI document dated January 31st, 1949, and it was sent then to FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, states, and this is it. At a recently weekly intelligence conference of G2, ONI, OSI, and FBI in the 4th Army area, officers of G2 4th Army have discussed the matter of unidentified aircraft or unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's almost UAP. It's anomalous, but aerial. Otherwise known as flying discs, flying saucers, and balls of fire. This matter is considered top secret by intelligence officers of both the Army and the Air Force. I'm skimming. They observed a phenomenon over Los Alamos. So it goes back into the history. Remember, this is an older book. And even Canadian. In a Canadian Department of Transport memo dated November 21st, 1950, Wilbert B. Smith, senior radio engineer, forwarded a proposal to the controller of telecommunications suggesting a formal study of, among other things, using the Earth's magnetic field as a possible energy source. The subject of flying saucers happened to come up in the memo as follows. I made discreet inquiries through the Canadian Embassy staff in Washington who were able to obtain for me the following information. The matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States government, ranking higher even than the H-bomb. Flying saucers exist. This is a direct thing from that memo. Their modus operandi is unknown, but concentrated effort is being made by a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush. The entire matter is considered by the United States authorities to be of tremendous significance. So when we hear them talk about declassifying stuff, this stuff has been considered so utmost top secret classified for decades. So good luck declassifying anything of it, because they don't want, there's no way. The Smith memo itself was classified top secret. It goes into Blue Book. This one, because it was terminated, reports, this is a quote, reports of unidentified flying objects which could affect national security are made in accordance with JANAP 146 or Air Force Manual 55-11 and are not part of the Blue Book system. End quote. Quoting the same document again, as already stated, reports of UFOs which could affect national security should continue to be handled through the standard Air Force procedures designed for this purpose. End quote. The document was signed by Brigadier General C.H. Bolender, the Air Force's Deputy Director of Development. 16 attachments that once accompanied the document are no longer in Air Force files. I mean, and here it is. This is the one I wanted to get to. With Salas and others. A NORAD document dated November 11, 1975 is probably one of the most significant modern examples of suspicious unknown air activity possibly affecting national security. And remember, I believe Salas does want to testify. I'll just say that. I'm assuming, but I believe he does. It states that in October and early November of 1975, reliable military personnel at Loring Air Force Base, Maine, Wurtsmith Air Force Base, Michigan, Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, and the Canadian Air Force Station at Falcon Bridge, Ontario, had visually sighted suspicious objects. Once again, the reliability of the observers is established from the start, and once again, the UFOs are reported in sensitive military areas. These are missile control facilities, aircraft alert areas, and nuclear weapon storage areas where security is generally tight. In reporting on one incident, a Loring Air Force Base teletype stated that an unidentified demonstrated a clear intent in the weapon storage area. The Air Force never explained what the clear intent was, though it seemed that in this instance it was nonviolent intent. So there are plenty of cases out there that occurred on bases. And I'm sure there's a lot of retired personnel out there that may still be alive to testify of what happened. But we need also corroboration of people that were actually seeing what was going on. We need to see if they can pick up the radar information correlating these objects on radar. You know, you have to make the case completely. You just can't have testimony because that's not good enough. We need evidence. So in here it says, after there was documents, and they said, after reviewing the arguments, the court, by releasing documents, declared it in its memorandum and order that release of the documents could seriously jeopardize the work of the agency and the security of the United States. So if this is taken to the court's going to say it's national security. In balancing the public interest in the issue of UFOs against the agency's need for secrecy, the court further determined that public interest in disclosure is far outweighed by the sensitive nature of the materials and the obvious effect on national security their release may well entail. That's a quote. This is from years ago. This has already been in the courts. They can use that. They can use that in any case brought forward that a court already decided this. Do you see the problem? This is why, Stains, you know about this, but this shows, this was written years ago, decades ago, and they were on it. Now, it was called Clear Intent, then they changed the title. If you want to see, get a little background, what the hell's going on right now with all this nonsense, get this book and read it. It's pretty much the same things they're dealing with in this book that's going on right now. I just read a little snippet from it. It's almost word to word in this book of exactly what's going on right now. Word for word. Alexa, shut off the living room light.
Okay.
Now, what does that tell you? This ain't nothing new. It's been going on for decades. This is so secretive, they're no way gonna declassify anything of real relevance because that outweighs public need to know the truth about any of it. It's national security. I've always said that. So don't hold your breath. You'll suffocate. It'll be over. So, like Astain said, that book is a classic. Somebody gave it to me for Christmas years ago as for the hearing, that hearing was, I'm not even talking about that hearing. That was a nothing hearing. There was nothing there at all. Zero. Nothing. I didn't even take a note. On the other hearing, I took 8 pages of notes. I didn't even put the pen to the paper for this one. That's how bad it was. At least the other one, I took 8 pages of notes. Yes, I took 8 pages of notes. This one, I didn't even put the pen to paper. Not even once. I even wrote on the paper, look. There's nothing there. Now the other one, there's pages. I wrote notes and notes of pages on the other one. This one, not a drip. It was waste. And I'm sure a lot of people are watching it and they're saying the same thing. What the hell was that? What the heck was that? Yeah, you got a huge storm coming. There's a atmospheric river possibly affecting BC, British Columbia. And by the way, good luck to your Knucks tonight against the New York Rangers. That's all I'll say. I know they're playing tonight. I may not be streaming to watch that game. Otherwise, I got to deal with you in chat telling me scores. You still got to finish your fence, bro. But yeah, I highly recommend if you're interested in this UFO stuff, UAP stuff, whatever you want to call it. It used to be called Clear Intent. This is the newer title, revised. Get this. Just get this. And if you're familiar with what's going on with these so-called hearings and the stuff that's going on, this book covers it decades ago. And it's like, reading it is like, is this now? Was this book just released? I think the revised version was released in 90-something. I don't know. Oh, you got the fence finished? I think it was... Let me see. What's the copyright? 84. It's even older than that. Oh, okay. So 92. 92. Okay, I was right. The other one was 84. This one was 92. One. This is the one. This is the one you want. I'm telling you, and it's cheap on Amazon. $16. It's worth the read if you're interested in the topic. And it's got the redacted documents as a reference in the back. It's got a lot of stuff in here of interest. Like I said, based on conversations I have with people behind the scenes, there are interested people that want to appear at a hearing. Now, do I think they want to go to Arrow? No. I don't think there's any trust in Arrow. I don't think they want to do that. Now, okay, this is public, I think. Did he make it public? So a direct witness met with congressional officials after the hearing last week. The person was sitting in the front row, but he met with congressional members after the hearing. A direct witness. So will Congress, because they've done that, they did it with Grush, will Congress decide who? I don't even know if they should go to Arrow. Maybe they need to go to Congress. Come to us. Because I'm telling you, I wrote it down, Gallaudet, and I got to do a pre-record in a minute. Gallaudet said it. I wrote it down in the notes. He said it at the hearing last week. When he went to Arrow, they attempted to convince him to change his views on certain UAP cases and tried to discredit UAP whistleblowers. That's what Gallaudet said when he was called in. He said that at the hearing last week. So why would you go into Arrow? Because there's a new person leading the thing? Are you kidding me? So what? That's going to be a major game changer? Some people believe that it is. I don't think so. To me, it's the same policies, the same protocols. If you could have one civilian UFO researcher experience it, all right, he's gonna. I don't know if Decker could handle it because he would lose it. To be honest, he'd lose a fuse. I don't think Don can have the restraint at a hearing. To be honest, he would lose a fuse. He might become hostile. That would be my concern with Don, because Don doesn't take no BS. So I don't know if Don would take their BS. He's going to call on it, and he's going to say, this is a load of, he'll say it, this is a load of bullshit. You know what I mean? I don't think so, John. He says, you're so right. Yeah, no, it won't work. If you could have one civilian UFO researcher, shit. That is a very hard question. One. Or experiencer. Oh my God, that's even worse. Well, I know one. I know two experiencer military that I would like to see, but it ain't gonna happen. Why don't we just throw... No, we can't do him. He's not direct. I know one, two. I'm not so sure about the third. I know, but there's no way they're going to do it. As far as a researcher, you got to remember, there's a public perception of a lot of these so-called researchers that they think they're shills and agents for the government as part of the disinfo and campaign as it is. So there's going to be a lack of trust within the UFO community. Can you imagine the bullshit that would happen if you had so-called UFO researchers who you choose to appear there? They're going after them hardcore. The other UFO researchers are going to be like, why him? And they're going to attack. Or her. So that's a slippery slope. Like, to choose a UFO researcher, that's a slippery slope. Because they're going to target them. The people that dislike that person within the community. Because there is that definite goes on. The competitiveness, the ego, there's so much of it. They'll be like, why him or her? Why wasn't it me? Why wasn't I suggested? It's all about the me. To be honest, just think about it. Let's just say, Richard Dolan. You know how many people are going to come out against that idea? Why Richard Dolan? Why not? But I'm using him as an example. I'm not saying... But as that's an example. I mean, who do you choose to represent that? One person? One person? There'd be all craziness going on. I don't know if a UFO researcher is a good idea, to be honest. Now, he's not well, but I would like to see Robert Hastings because he researched a lot. He's up there in age, though, and his health. There's one, I don't know what other people might think about it, but there's a researcher. If this same number keeps trying to call me, if you want to contact me, leave a message. I don't answer unknown phone calls. Just don't. Leave a message. If it's so important, leave a voicemail. Oh, shit. Chris is in Florida. But you know what I mean? It's a tough one. All I know is there are people still alive and could testify. Witnesses. But we'll see what happens. But I need to get off because I got to do a pre-record. Like now. But it makes for interesting conversation. I would love to see Robert Salas do it. And others that were on the base. It just cannot be him. It's got to be others as well. Okay, now that might be a voicemail. It is tough. That's what I'm saying. John says Dolan might be the best as a spokesman person for the so-called community. It's tough. It is tough because they're all gonna freak out. They're all gonna freak out because everybody wants to be that person. You know what I mean? They want to be that person. It's gonna put them on a pedestal forever. Now Dolan knows his stuff. Rich knows his stuff. And I'll keep it at that. Because Rich also has connections. I'll keep it at that. So he's in the know. People may not realize that they may talk about him negatively. I won't, because I know him and I know what kind of person he is and his makeup. He's not a shill. He's not a disinfo. This guy has his beliefs, his opinions, and a lot of people, you know, they might say, oh, like anything else. I actually think Richard wouldn't be a bad person to do it, but I'm sure there'd be a lot of flack. That's what I'm saying. But that could be the case for many. I see. I agree. I think Dolan wouldn't be. I don't think that would be a bad idea. Or maybe you get a few of them. Maybe you get a few researchers. Instead of picking one, you pick 4. But what are the researchers going to do? They're just going to provide information based on cases. Well, they should already have that information based on cases. Okay, that was before. I need to see my voicemail for a second. I want to see if this person, whoever this person is, leaving a voicemail. Because this is starting to piss me. See? It was like some weird sound, like somebody walking and doing something. Twice, it was the same call. It's fishy. That was fishy. Anyway, I gotta get off. I gotta do a pre-record. So everybody have a great rest of your afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time it is where you are. And see everybody soon. So Bob, good luck with your Knucks tonight. The game starts at what, 10, I think, here? 7 your time? So I think it starts here at 10. Or 9, I think it's 10 o'clock. Could be, yeah, I think it's 10. So we'll see. Anyway, everybody, have a great night.